Adam is in the driver's seat right now. So I think they're setting up, but
Yeah.
I guess short intro, I think most people here probably know Adam, who's a member extraordinaire, is going to do a really cool event, I think in a week or two, around energy, AI, the grid, which is 90 minutes, which I don't think any of you want to miss. And I definitely don't want to miss. And then this is going to be really exciting around, well, exciting, very timely, around privacy. And so I'm planning on learning a ton as well. And there is this intersection between privacy and climate now, as you may sort of feel. But Adam, do you want to take it away?
Yep. So let me know if anybody can't hear me, but as with most of my presentations, I'm going to go through stuff kind of fast and then leave the end more for question and answers because there's lots of things that aren't here. And I want everybody to have the opportunity to ask questions about their specific situation or anything that they're seeing that they don't know the truth of, that kind of stuff. But I'm going to make sure to get you at least some really bare knowledge and starting points so that you can make sure you're staying safe in 2025. So the first big thing is if you take nothing away, take away this slide. And I'm not going to go over every single one of these. The really big thing is this is kind of a lowest effort going up to the biggest effort. And if you do anything today, put uBlock Origin on every single device, every single browser, all that you do. This will help in a lot of different ways, both in personal tracking of you, but also just keeping your devices safe as well. There's lots of different little things that you can do with that. I know this is controversial. I know that there's a lot of back and forth on research with it. My personal recommendation, and I'll get into my background of why I feel like I have the authority to talk about this. As of right now in 2025, get your kids off online social media apps at a bare minimum, if not getting them off online connected services, period. That's Roblox, Fortnite, anything with a chat box, anything where there's some kind of communication with online social interactions. I can get into more of why that is, but it basically comes on to trafficking, pedophilia, and actually the worst of it being online social harassment, which is a really massive problem in this day and age. So my background and why I'm talking about this stuff today, the very first part of my career, I spent 7 years as a Navy cryptologist. The stuff that you see over here on the right is the kind of stuff I looked at for 12 hours a day, 365 days a year. And I would play this little soundbite for you, but I'll let you do that on your own, just in case anybody has the volume turned up loud, because it is noisy. My job training and my actual job myself was effectively paid for by the NSA, along with all my training. And the types of things that I looked at were anywhere from a basic FSK, frequency shift keying signals, all the way to 64 QAM signals, which are quadrature amplitude multiplexing. So lots of different range in what I did and incredible amounts of complexity. The systems that I had access to eventually led me to where I had my clearance revoked because I specifically asked to be taken out of certain programs after the Edward Snowden leaks came out. And due to me just asking to be taken out of the programs, that got my clearance revoked because it spooked people out, basically. So when I say I know about things, I do know about things, and I had consequences to my career because of it. So why I'm talking about this today and why I feel people should pay attention, regardless of who you are, is the importance of our weakest people. There are 4,000 federal laws, and the state average has about 100,000 plus different regulatory restrictions. based on administrative functions and a whole bunch of host of other things. You probably are at this very moment, if not in the past, actively breaking a law. And the thing right now in the information era, and especially with your NSAs, your FBIs, and the data kind of formatting that they're going into in the information era, is this infinite reach back type of modality shift that is different from the prior kind of Cold War era where they're much more concerned with what's happening right now, right in their face. And especially with this administration, this infinite reach back, they can go to something that happened 20 years ago, but as long as they have the data on it, that's all they care about because that gives them reasonability to go into something. Candace, do you have a? Oh, okay. Um, so why that matters is what I've put exactly here. The rights and privileges of an old, rich, powerful man will ultimately be the same as the weakest person under the mass oppression. Why I say mass oppression is because right now, a lot of people are not using the correct definitions of things in my mind. When we talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a lot of people are saying that he has been deported, that he has been detained, that he has been sent to prison. And those are incorrect and inaccurate words. He has had no due process whatsoever. And therefore, he has been kidnapped. He has been trafficked. And he is in a concentration camp right now. This little red circle that you see, this is Kilmar Abrego Garcia inside CCOT in El Salvador. And thankfully, we had the one senator that was just able to meet and confirm that he is still alive, thankfully. But with the history of concentration camps that we know, um, that's what makes this situation so terrifying. And that's why you'll see me talking about this a little bit more alarmingly today. Um, so government specific risk, I'll be going over government, corporate, and private specific risk. So government risk, again, what I was talking about before, that infinite look back period. The data centers that the different government agencies have are absolutely massive. And this is both for processing, but also data storage. The data storage type of stuff that they have are decades beyond what we have commercially available and are staring petabytes of data from text files, images, videos, anything you can think of. They are being stored on these servers and cloud-based systems through various locations. Um, part of the reason for that are for programs like PRISM, which was one of the things that Edward Snowden was able to reveal in the leaks that he did. PRISM started back in about 2007 and slowly acquired different tech companies to allow different pieces of data to come into the total system. As you gain more pieces of access to data, you basically allow for a larger collection of points to reference to different individuals. The main purpose of PRISM was to develop basically a triangulation between people and draw associations. So if you had three terrorists that talked to this one guy, you could reasonably assume that they may be a terrorist. And the more evidence you could draw pointing to that one person with these different kind of connections, you could start targeting that person as well. And that was effectively the point of that program. But sadly, like so many things, the heartbreak law kind of comes into effect of that. And these laws just started become abused. So the heartbreak law, you will not find a formal definition of online. The reason is the heartbreak law basically is an extra protection that is written in by basically every single agency at this point, but especially within the NSA. And it basically says that even if someone is your spouse, girlfriend, your honey bear that you aren't actually in a relationship with, or a family member, whatever, even though that's the case, because there's a person that's close to you, you are still not allowed to collect on that person unless you are explicitly given a target for them. And that is never the case. Like there's always given to someone else because there's a conflict of interest. The thing is, that's already enshrined in the Constitution. The reason they had to make this heartbreak law, and it's behind like a closed door, you don't see this on a public record anywhere, is because so many people broke that constitutional right so consistently and so often, they had to make an additional protection within the agency. So corporate risk. This is coming from me as a very anti-capitalist person. That's me. Profit-seeking companies care about profit. Right. Starting to warm up in the morning. Companies care about profit. Ultimately, if you go look at a lot of security reports, you'll see very quickly, like the recent Southwest incident or many of the airlines, cybersecurity, IT infrastructure, all that kind of thing kind of goes to the wayside at the end of the day. And it only takes a 97% system shutdown to where people are stranded at airports across the country for them to actually do an improvement. Thanks Southwest for that one. So when you talk about giving your DNA data to 23andMe, when you talk about every single detail of your life going into Google, when you talk about Doge having all of this control over our government systems and being able to go walk into any federal building and basically do whatever they want to do, when you have hundreds of companies with different types of bio data from you, that has its own extremely dangerous kind of thing that people can exploit either individually or a very recent thing of insurance companies taking advantage of that. And then even just for a corporation itself, IP hacking is about 94% of the like IT infrastructure cost for a business. Due to the losses of IP theft. And that's in the billions per year for all businesses in just the US, if I remember correctly. So there's a lot to look at there. Private risk. If you'll be able to see the chicken here. But private risk, the biggest thing there is your PII is very inexpensive and will go up on the black market effectively the day after a major breach happens. And this plays a little bit into the corporate thing, but the big thing here for a direct private risk are scams, phishing attempts, stuff like that. They're becoming extremely sophisticated. And this goes back into the really big prevalence of keeping your data on a lock hold. And one of the biggest things I can advocate for here that really takes about 5 minutes or so is freezing your credit. It's really annoying when you have to go do a mortgage or buy a car or something like that, but it's totally worth it when something awful happens and you don't have to go through the miles and miles of paperwork and hassle to fix your credit. So now that we've talked about those risks, there's stuff that I want to get into specifically about technology and hardware that most people aren't aware of. So a lot of people are aware of scams and stuff like that, and that's great. People are aware of hacking. People are aware of mass surveillance from the government. I want to get into very specific threats about how deep does this technology go. So modern identity tracking is extremely advanced. And one of the big things that I want to point out, especially if you're going out to protest, if you're going to um, uh, places like DC, and just even visiting the White House or something like that. Again, this goes back into the PRISM program, where if you're just talking to someone that's your friend and they have certain uh, objections to the government, especially with the Trump administration and the recent press releases that they've done, where going against their bottom line is basically being proposed to terrorism type stuff. This is going to become more and more relevant. So basically, if you don't already know, facial identity detection goes against this kind of edge detection thing that you see here on the bottom row. And this is the basis of what a lot of facial identity recognition software works off of. The innovations that are happening around this are the different ways of image capture that come with this. So this first one is just a typical normal light-based video camera. And then you have an infrared camera here that allows for a different type of edge detection. This one is a 3D mapping. So basically you project lasers, sound waves, whatever, onto a surface, and you're basically getting kind of like a topographical map of someone's face here. Don't remember what this one is. And then this is kind of like a fusion element here. The really big key thing here is that the new infrared type of imaging capabilities that have happened the past 5 to 10 years, IR has become incredibly affordable. So a lot of policing agencies and enforcement agencies have gotten their hands on this technology, and therefore a lot of the AI processing stuff for this has also gotten a lot better. So even wearing a mask, you may not be able to see it here, but you can still very much take out the details that are needed for this edge detection, even with a typical mask on. And I'll talk a little bit more about potential workarounds for that. And then you have Fusion IR, which basically allows you to take night vision and infrared and allow you to basically take both of those into this fusion combination and see practically anything. In metabolic tracking. So metabolic tracking is a newer innovation. This one freaks me out the most, honestly, because it takes that relational inferment to the next level. So you see here up on the upper right, you have a mother, a child, and then just like a random stranger lady that are interacting with these different people, or interacting with the child, sorry. Um, and basically what's happening in this study is the child's having some kind of like unfortunate event, some negative instance, and the child has a reaction to it. And you can kind of see their metabolic profile change throughout that. And what you're seeing here is the mother react to their child having that negative event. And on the bottom here, you can see the stranger having a very minimal reaction to that. The key end point of this being that if you were being targeted, or someone was trying to figure out something about you or your family, they could basically make these inferments through the metabolic data while tracking those IR signatures or using a fusion technique. Beyond that as well, if for some reason they could not capture regular light-based imagery of you, they can also take the IR and do AI facial reconstruction type stuff, basically, that goes back to trying to reconstruct your face, basically. Um, There's a lot of controversy in facial recognition software because of the false ID potential for it, especially when it comes to minorities. There's a huge, massive wealth of data bias and lack of data for minorities, which leads to lots of false identifications, false positives, and false negatives. Um, and I'll talk a little bit about things you can do to subvert some of these things. The biggest thing goes back to the edge detection that I was talking about. So when you have these little shirts, they're basically replicating those edge detection points that I was talking about. So it kind of looks like weird little like computer faces, but that's exactly what the AI is trying to like boil it down to. So when you have all these different little things, it just kind of overwhelms the system, doesn't know what to do with it. And similar here, like obviously to us, it's a bunch of different of the same face, but it confuses the system and it focuses on these versus trying to focus on your individual profile here. The thing is, when you have the IR, it can go past this stuff, right? So one thing you can consider here is you have the COVID mask where they can put like your own filter inside there. You could actually just put some aluminum foil or some other kind of metal foil in there. And typically that'll actually block well enough for the IR range. I have some notes in here about other things that you can do for countermeasures as well. And I'll leave that to you to look through those. The FIR, the fusion thing that I talked about, this gets more into like if you're going to protest or when things get much worse and we're having like non-minority raid type stuff. But there's IR blackened glasses like these right here. You can also use the umbrellas that are normally used to block out sunlight or just like heat indexes. They have this nice little foil that's kind of wrapped into the umbrella itself, and you can kind of use that. I've also seen people putting foils inside of protest signs that you can use. And then this is basically an obscurification method for the edge detection matrix as well. Um, Misinformation machine is important more so in kind of a community resilience type of thing. Um, the importance here being that as we go on, especially with what I was talking about earlier in relation to CCOT and how people talk about Mr. Garcia, uh, saying that he's been deported, or effectively words alluding to that he's had some kind of due process, that's being totally false. He's had no due process. And even though that may be a mistake on some people's part, when you have a misinformation machine and you can feed in, especially through the use of bots, this undertone of him having some sort of due process or that he was associated with a gang or just fuel doubt, basically, that pushes the public narrative in your favor. And as of right now, from the latest research, it is overwhelmingly pointed towards the alt-right pipeline, conservative ideology, and other things like that. So it's something that we always need to be presently aware of when we're consuming media and be careful about what sources we use. Specific privacy and data risk for women. There's an extreme risk for doxing. Um, I talk a little bit more about that, specifically how to avoid that a little bit later in the slides, but this is something that you deeply need to be aware of. I would suggest going to YouTube, watching either a video of someone that has been doxxed or countermeasures to doxing itself if you haven't already. Um, but this is one of the top risks, specifically because of cultural pieces to that, incel culture that we have in the US, and a host of other things. But this is one of the top kind of risk factors here because of other things that are just systemically there for women as well. With the current administration and the anti-abortion culture that we have right now, I highly, highly suggest getting rid of your menstrual data tracking. That's the apps, the devices, any data that you have related to it on any of your personal devices. If you can, I would even recommend going to your medical provider and getting rid of that information. There are ways that you can safely store those things on encrypted devices. Um, but from what I know with my work with the NSA, those are not 100% safe. And it becomes a conversation with your medical provider of whether you need that data for future knowledge and it's important to your medical safety. And how much kind of push and give that you want to give to that. The reason being that your old menstrual data can be used to develop basically like a future profile for you so that in the future, as we've seen in Texas, even if it has absolutely no fault to your own and you're just having a miscarriage or something like that, that will still be used against you in the worst circumstances. So deeply consider that and have a conversation with your medical provider about it. In that same kind of line, diet and health practice behaviors, uh, because that could be seen or related to an abortion attempt. Again, it's just all about control. Consider deleting that stuff as well. Um, you can always put that in a paper journal because those are super easy to just get rid of. I can also suggest I have, uh, yeah, these erasable pens. The erasable pen, what's really nice about these is the ink will basically go away with heat. And what you can do is you write down all the stuff that's important to you in the journal. And if something happens and you need to get rid of that data, you throw it in the microwave for 5 minutes, it's pretty much gone. And the only way they're going to be able to retrace that is looking at the indentations of every single page, which is very difficult. But even then, you can do more destroying of that data. Um, artificially generated revenge porn and nudes are becoming more and more prevalent. Uh, I really don't have a good information for countermeasures to that, sadly. That's just something to be very aware of. Um, and then similarly, I don't have great countermeasures for AGI like created women and the hyper kind of like beauty standards stuff that they're kind of going around. The major thing there that I bring that up for is you really need to have a conversation with your kids about what those things are, why they look the way they do, and ensuring that they feel confident in their own bodies. Um, so that those things are not emplacing upon them. Um, Other minority risk, there is a huge exacerbation of already in place systematic injustices that will flourish under AI automations, especially automations that are incoming from various government agencies right now, or Trump administration agencies, I should say. Um, the information siloing that used to be in effect for your NSA, FBI, CIA, basically used to be, I have a piece of information, I'm not allowed to share it with the other agencies just willy-nilly because there is a process to that, basically. The thing that's happening right now is they'll basically just kind of put it onto a national database and there's kind of like an oopsie moment. So, for example, in Los Angeles, where they're having the protests right now, the police will go through with a AI facial recognition capture camera, drive around, capture images of all the people that are protesting, load that up into their national database, and effectively put out targets for that. The FBI comes back in and sees people that are agitators effectively, and then feed that information over to ICE. Because typically, what they are not allowed to do is for police to take those pictures and directly report it to ICE or directly report it to the FBI. But by loading it up into a national database of like a generalized threat area, they kind of bypass this information sharing law. So that's something to be aware of. Um, Civil resistance and sex work specific risk, you need to scrub your metadata. If you don't know what metadata is and you don't know how to scrub it, you need to go research it today. If you're doing anything that has to do with civil rights, anything to do with resistance, and especially anything to do with sex work, uh, scrub your metadata, period. It doesn't matter how small of an action that you're doing related to this, if it's an image, a video, a PDF, an email document, whatever. Scrub your metadata. Um, a very interesting incident happened where a Project 2025 original writer accidentally left their metadata on one of the bills that was recently written for Congress. And it was one of the smoking guns that actually allowed us to see that the Project 2025 is directly writing laws for the current Trump administration and pushing them through Congress. Um, so that's an excellent example of where metadata can really bite you, depending on who you are. Um, Trees, roadways, little tiny bushes, graphic tees are a huge one. Tattoos are a huge one. Even just the angle of a shadow of a light pole that's next to you can all be used with satellite imagery, which is highly, highly advanced now. Even back in 2010, you could read the writing on a dime from the most advanced satellite imagery, and those types of imagery are becoming commercially available at this point for $300 a month. So whether it's a government, corporate, or private risk, they're becoming much more prevalent. And it's something that you really need to take care of. When you are doing face blocking, trying to obscure like your kid's face, someone that you're reporting on, or even your own face, do not use any kind of scattering technology. Just use a black box. The pixelation and stuff, as you can see on the bottom right here, can be reversed in some way, or with the newest AI techniques, which is even more efficient and faster, you can just AI reconstruct, and then it basically tests itself at the end to downscale it back to the original input and make sure that it's doing the right job. So black box only. And then obviously know your rights. Is it going to help you when you're getting kidnapped by ICE? Not necessarily, but it can at least help you when you're getting instigated by police or FBI or something, with a no warrants or whatever. And then shut the fuck up. I'll play a video at the end that goes into that a little bit more. But ultimately, the best thing that you can do in almost every single scenario is just shut up. Um, Stop talking, let people get themselves in trouble as they're trying to tell you what they're arresting you for or accosting you for. Let them talk. More often than not, most lawyers will tell you that if you just shut up, you will be in a much better place than if you're trying to talk to someone, trying to talk police down from like letting you go or whatever, because you're just going to instigate yourself with more issues. Digital safety, check time. Okay. Um, Highly suggest getting a data broker cleaner. You can get super cheap ones. The super cheap ones are perfectly fine. I use one for like $12 a year, and it works great. You can also get thorough ones that are much more expensive, but it's whatever. If you're going to a protest in 2025, do not take your phone, period. Um, I do not recommend it anymore. 2024, maybe. 2023, it was fine. 2025, do not take your phone, period. Uh, if you're doing anything that's going to involve the TSA, I would recommend not taking your phone. You can take your phone if you want to. There is a chance that they will have the opportunity to scan your phone. And if you think that's not that big of a deal, I will relay you back to my original message of you are probably breaking a law, and it's just whether or not they want to prosecute you. The important thing there is you need to have a physical password on your phone, because if you have a physical password, they, as of right now, will not be allowed to bypass that. If you have a fingerprint scan or a facial scan, they will be allowed to bypass that. So that's the important difference there. The facial capture at TSA, you are allowed to opt out of. Sometimes they'll ask you about it. Just say that you want to opt out, give them your license, and it's done. You need to start using encrypted messaging today. I personally suggest Signal, but use whatever you want to use. And then I've listed some other stuff. I'm going to speed up a little bit so we can ask questions. Privacy activism, there are so many different groups that do various things, specifically for a lot of the digital stuff that I'm talking about. The Electronic Frontier Foundation is the primary one that works on that, but the UCLA also is a huge part of that as well. Resources, stay up to date both on civil rights issues and tech issues related to those things. Down here, I got you a starter pack basically per privacy. So if you're brand new to this type of stuff, you have no idea how to even set up or like a really good strong password for your computer, this is where you start right here. And that's pretty much it. And I'll let this play real quick.
It is so important to tell you kids who are new to this movement.
Shut the fuck up. You're sitting in the police transport van after a protest?
Shut the fuck up. In a holding cell with your comrades?
Shut the fuck up. Cop knocks on your door?
Shut the fuck up.
Texting on an unsecured device?
Shut the fuck up. Pulled over by the cops after a protest?
Shut the fuck up. Cop just asking about your day?
Shut the fuck up. Feds call your mom?
Tell your mother to shut the fuck up.
Now, repeat after me. When the cops come calling, what do you do?
Shut the fuck up!
Okay. I can take questions now.
I've been taking notes.
Okay.
Mikey, why don't you go first? Because then I'll take you through these, Adam, kind of quickly. But Mikey, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, Adam, is there anything on kind of the consumer, because like in Colorado, California, maybe a few other places, just consumption data, grid data, all that kind of stuff. Do you see that becoming a serious threat if other states don't really kind of start looking down and how they start protecting privacy rights for people with Grid 2.0 on the horizon?
Are you saying the grid data itself or
really, yeah, really consumption data more than anything. Since it's very easy, you know, if you ever got your hand on somebody's meter, you were ever able to, you know, get that data, you'd very well be able to monitor somebody's kind of almost their entire life, figure out when they're home, when they're not home, what they're doing, how they live their life. It's kind of a very important social data point.
I could, well, what's scarier to me is, so like, you know, power through Ethernet or Ethernet through power.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more freaky to me. And with the stuff that NSA can do technology wise, like I could easily see them being able to, I don't know, like hotwire that somehow. And bypass the need to do routing directly into that.
Yeah.
But I mean that's going overboard a little bit. But I think the bigger thing is that if they're going to that extent, they're already going through cell towers and stuff like that.
True.
And that's more beefy data. And I think at that point, it's more like every single person in the city is on a VPN or a Tor network and they just can't get through anything and they're getting desperate. And I mean, you can make some sort of profile, but I think the bigger thing would be that there's like an individual person that has like a super high load and like they get targeted to make sure they're not running like an individual data center or like Ribbit network or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think that would only happen once you see that like an agency's getting desperate because they can't get data somewhere else.
Fair enough. Quick related question. Have you ever looked into home area networks, disaggregators, and the general ability to get very, very fine-tuned, even to the point where we're almost talking Batman technology with that Wi-Fi to figure out the room sizes?
Yeah, so that was actually an active research project at CSU when I left. They're pretty good at this point. It depends on what kind of like router and stuff that you have, because that depends on what like levels of gigahertz and stuff that you can get to. But especially the ones that can go up to like the 6 AC now. If you have that kind of technology on board, that just gives you like a greater range of frequencies to play with. And because you'll typically use your lower to like go super far into the room and then your higher frequencies to get like the details of everything. Um, but that's more just like not threat building, but situational awareness kind of building stuff. Um, and a little bit of that goes into tracking, but you can do that just as easily with cell towers and stuff. So it's just more
Yeah.
just getting down to finite details of the Wi-Fi kind of GPS tracking stuff.
Okay. Thanks for the answers.
Yeah, I had a ton, sort of rapid fire, but do you want me to go through them with you?
Yeah, so your first one, actually deleting your data. When it comes to anything that Meta touches, if you go in and you say like delete my data, because of the terms and conditions that you agree to, technically, no. There is a specific process that you have to go through. If you Google like actually delete my data or something like that,
Yeah.
there's a very specific process that you have to go through to actually remove your data. The slow process of it is you literally have to go there, click every single photo, delete it by hand. There are like GitHub available repositories where it'll automate that process for you. So you don't have to manually do it, but effectively it's still manually going through every single photo. Because there's not a way, again, due to the terms and conditions, to just say, hey, delete my stuff and leave me alone.
Yeah. Cool. And then for Project 2025, or sorry, Project 2025, that person's metadata on the bill, like was
Yeah,
that
so every time you create a PDF document, unless you've already had it set up to not capture metadata, it
got it.
automatically has metadata attached to that document for like in nice normal conditions so that you can trace that document back to its original creator, because in a nice stable environment, it's nice to be able to know who the original writer is and contact them. In this case, that person really didn't want that because that's proof that Project 2025 is like writing bills. And typically they do erase their metadata when they do that, but for whatever reason they forgot to do it that time.
Yeah,
So that was just kind of a spoof incident.
got it. Shut the fuck up. If someone gets detained, do you say like, why am I being detained? Or do you literally not say anything? Like, can you
Yeah,
ask
you
questions?
can ask, why am I being detained?
Sure.
But I would say like that's pretty much it. But
Yeah.
if you're getting into a state of panic where you're not sure if you're going to be able to just ask that single question and
Mhm.
then shut the fuck up, then just shut the fuck
Yeah,
up.
cool. And then I have always thought Firefox was like the privacy browser, but you said Brave is, and Brave is on
It
top of Chrome, but maybe it's safer than
So yeah,
Firefox.
so Firefox used to be, there's a bunch of controversy with
Mm,
them either selling third-party data and then they
mm,
stopped selling third-party data and then they started sharing some stuff with like developers, and I don't know. There's a constant back and
yeah.
forth because they're an independent like org and they have to like make money somehow to stay
Mhm.
afloat, but at the same time there's just like a constant battle with that. Brave is originally built on top of a Chromium
Mhm.
version, but I don't know how to explain that the best way, but Chromium is not going to be
Google Chrome.
reporting to Chrome or
Cool.
Google or whatever. So it's its own independent thing.
How do they make money then if they're not selling data?
I think it's a open source project, if I
Cool.
remember correctly. But the original creator is, I want to say a co-founder of Firefox or something else like that, and is just a huge privacy advocate.
Cool. And then, yeah, my last question was just, what happens when, and it seems like it's happening very quickly, when the government can make up evidence.
I I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
case where I feel like we need to get a ACLU lawyer on for a
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, that's a very real possibility. I mean, we already had Trump posting AI videos to his Twitter or some other
Mhm.
platform. And even though that was like an entertainment thing, like completely inappropriate for a president to do,
Mhm.
if not unethical entirely. And that is very much a already slippery slope into something much worse. Uh, Once that starts happening, we're really going to have to follow people who are experts in the industry that can do the analysis to say what is and is not an original video and what has
Mhm.
been manipulated or what is generated, because there are things that you can do to perform that analysis. The problem is going to be, uh, especially in journalism, finding journalists that
Mhm.
report on that effectively and consistently.
Is there a time when you just won't be able to tell? Like even an expert won't be able to tell the difference between AI generated and not?
A good question. I'm not sure. Um, I mean, like, even for people like me that's like grown with this stuff, like I have a pretty good eye, but like there's even some stuff now. Like it really depends on the situation. Like if somebody's
Mhm.
just like showing something in front of them and it's just like a pullover green screen, like I'm not paying attention enough most of the time.
Yeah.
But if they're just like nudging something, and that goes back into the misinformation machine. Like if they're just nudging a concept into the door, um, like it really, you don't put that much thought into it, right? Versus where someone's trying to introduce this like alien spaceship and you're like, what is that? Like it looks real, but this is a really weird concept.
Yeah.
Um, and that goes back into like our traditional media training where like you have to verify through multiple sources, you have to go through a different bunch of different types of sources and perspectives and
Yeah.
biases and all that kind of stuff. Um, and Jenny, I will try to look for that repository really quick. But yeah, like it's getting more and more realistic every day. As of right now, there's still lots of things in there because it's that vectorization that are just kind of like constantly in the profiles, and that's part of what they're looking for when they're looking for the trace amounts of like the AI generated stuff. Versus like what a normal person can just like look at it until like something's off, right?
Mhm.
But as those start to get more and more minimized, especially when you're like going back in after the fact and doing like photoshopping or something like that on top of the already generated image, that'll get harder as well. Um, so yeah, it all kind of goes back to verifying through multiple sources, multiple angles if it's a video, or different people and biases of.
I had a question about email.
Yeah.
I've had a Proton Mail account for quite a while, but at some point I stopped really trying to use it, partly because it seemed pointless when so many people that I'm emailing are not using it and are using just sort of standard Gmail or whatever. So I figured anything I'm sending is being subject to surveillance anyway.
Mhm.
What is your take on that?
The the mm, the extremist take on it is don't email people that refuse to go encrypted. Um, and I say it's extremist because most people do use Gmail. Like, I mean, for my normal business stuff, I use Gmail because it's convenient. Um, and that's part of the reason why I listed it in the slides as part of like, if you're working in civil rights stuff, if you're working around protest or whatever, um, that kind of stuff, like in an ideal world, everyone encrypts their stuff regardless of what you're sending, even if it's like, hey grandma, I miss you, encrypted. Um, but the reality of how our government's trained us to do digital security for the past 20 years is just awful. So, um, I mean, that's just what it is. Like that's part of like the really hard struggle right now is like this administration has made everything the standards like just so bottom floor that even after we recover from this, working back up to even before what this administration did is still going to be uh, a mountain to climb because we were already in a bad place before that because of the Patriot Act um, and all the other pieces of like post 9/11 uh, terrorism hysteria.
Mm-hmm. Um,
But yeah, my recommendation is just do the encryption, um, at least a bare minimum. From your side, it will be encrypted. Google may take a sniff at it or something like that. Um, but it'll at least coming from your side, it'll be fine so that if you're being monitored either by a private entity, a corporate one, or by government entities, at least on your side, you'll be safe. Maybe they're monitoring the other person as well, but it's not a guaranteed thing.
okay.
And you can always also move to Signal for all your communication too.
Yeah. Well, interesting note about that. I just had to have my phone reset and in the process lost all of my Signal history groups, contacts, because it's all stored locally, which I didn't realize. So the good thing is like that's all gone. Like that's kind of good, kind of not good. But just something to be aware of, like if there's an issue with your phone and there's not really a way to back it up other than if you transfer it to another device before you do whatever you need to do to your current device, apparently. So yeah.
Yeah. If you get the signal for desktop, there's not like a syncing function, but you basically sync your phone activity more so, and that's a way to do that.
One other question. I went to the April 5th protests here and like had my phone, didn't like try to hide myself in any way, as you know, along with many of the other 30,000 people that were there. Any suggestions on like anything to do retroactively about that?
Retroactive, I really can't think of much outside of just deleting stuff off of the big social media, specifically face pictures, because that's the primary capture method. Facebook especially. Facebook is a fucking treasure trove for human analysis.
Jessica asked about DuckDuckGo. Do you use that?
I use the browser on my phone and I need to switch to Brave. I have not done so because I have 70 tabs on my phone because I have so many things I'm researching at one time. But I would suggest Brave for your phone, your online desktop browser, all that kind of stuff. If you're looking for a search engine, I highly suggest Ecosia. They're very good for privacy and not tracking all your stuff. And every time you search, it donates money that goes into planting trees. And their ads are not god awful like every other search engine.
All right. Well, that was another amazing Adam original. I love your presentations. I guess I want to end on the hour, but I'm assuming if anyone has any other questions, comments, anything, Adam, they can reach out to you. I mean, we have this recorded. Do you want us to share it within ClimateVine? Do you want us not to share it? Do you want us to delete the recording?
You can share it in ClimateVine.
Cool. And we'll do that.
And Jenny, I just posted that delete Facebook thing.
Nice.
And I will put a link for it somewhere in the slides.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. Thanks everyone for joining too. This was pretty, timely, relevant, and has to do with climate now. So, well, it has to do with everything now.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys. Oh, go ahead.
Just saying thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Adam.
Bye.
Adam.
Bye, everyone.